Hello and welcome to Overboost 11. Overboost is a podcast interview series featuring discussions with speedrunners about their history in speedrunning and gaming and the runs they're passionate about. I am your host, PMC Trilogy, and with me today is Amerlin. Amerlin, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. It's 2020. I feel bad every time I start this interview series with asking about how are you doing in 2020, but yeah. We're all hanging in there for whatever that's worth. I want to ask about. So I always like to start these with like some hot topics, some recent stuff that's going on, and I wanted to ask you because I noticed you were a person who recently did some small indie game speedrunning. There was a game called I think Sys Crusher that I saw you tweeting about. And I just wanted to sort of follow up with that, not so much to talk about the run as much. Do you feel like indie game speedrunning, that's a broad topic, is like becoming more and more a thing? Because I noticed this with a lot of runners that maybe you really love a series that isn't around anymore, or the series has gone in a different direction, or any one of these things, but like, you know, you still love the gameplay that series represents. Mm-hmm. And so now you're finding maybe indie games represent that better. What led you to speedrun Sys Crusher, and how do you feel about how the whole thing's come along?
So Sys Crusher in particular is kind of funny. One of my friends, the Boyks, posted a run of it like a month ago, and I was like, "Oh, this looks really cool. I'm gonna pick it up and get it into it." And he had also posted about how it was really difficult to get it on speedrun.com because they were rejecting it. So I picked it up. I did a few runs and submitted it to the website, and it got accepted. So Boyks and I started running it again. And then I posted a run of it to say, oh, this game is really cool. Like, it's a really good intro to FPS speedrun. Because, you know, it has a little bit of bunny hopping. It has, you know, you need decent aim. You got to avoid enemies. You know, and it was like a 6-minute run. And then I hopped in a Discord call with a bunch of my friends. And I was like, hey, you guys should play this game because it's, you know, choose your own price on itch.io, so it's like $1, $2. And it turns out the game is really broken, and you can just get out of bounds really easily. So from that, we just created a bunch of different really, really short categories. Like the shortest category is 2 minutes, and the longest is 4. You know, and it's so, you know, it follows the speedrun thing of there are similar tricks through all of them, but each run uses it in a different way. So, I mean, I still maintain it's a very, very good, like, first game, intro to FPS. Like, you want to learn how, you know, you want to do maybe Titanfall, or you want to do Portal, or you want to do Half-Life, but those games are too long. Sys Crusher's a really good way to approach that, and I think that's kind of the case for a lot of indie games nowadays. You know, like, I started with speedrunning A Hat in Time, with the beta, like, way back in 2015. And that game, it wasn't explicitly a call to, hey, look at Odyssey way off in the future, because I don't think Odyssey was even announced yet, but it was, look at these cool platformers that Nintendo used to make. This is something very much like it. And so I really liked those. It has a lot of Super Mario Sunshine references in it, in the secret levels and such. And so that's where I got started, and that's why I've always been a fan of indie game speedrunning, because it offers basically bite-sized versions of larger game styles.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right, because it's something that I think, especially as, you know, maybe the average age of people speedrunning or gaming gets older, I think we all become better at our understanding and articulating what it is that we like about the games that we play. But sometimes, as I mentioned when I was first asking the question, we don't necessarily get the same series or the same creators offering that same exact gameplay. But if it's still popular, you know, we should look out for, you know, things that are going to be in that same vein. Not every one of those is going to necessarily pan out, but it's still, I think, worth it more in the long run to have a sense that I think a community owns a style of gameplay rather than is like, oh well, we have to wait for Kojima to make the next stealth game. That's Don't make the rules. Those are it's only him.
Yeah, and that's I think indie game speedrunning, and like specifically the itch.io bundle that came out, I think is like criminally underexplored. There's probably a ton of games in there that would be like, someone's perfect first speed game, but because it's an indie game, it kind of flies under the radar a lot.
Yeah, no, that's definitely it's something I've been trying to improve too, and especially it's interesting that my brand is all about mechs and stuff, and a lot of those series are Armored Core, Front Mission are sort of underserved, and right now there is a lot of for whatever reason, especially like Southeast Asian developers who are coming out with these games, and I'm trying to like just pay attention. Not every one of them is good, but some of them are worth trying, and I think for anyone listening, whatever it is that you want to get into. Look out. Just whether that be on Steam, itch.io is also great. Like a lot of games, I feel like when I learn about them, it's because they just made it on the Steam, but they were previously on itch.io. So then it's also a great service to go. Sometimes I learn about a game on Steam, then I go back to itch.io and buy it there. But maybe let's go back to the beginning. Speaking of learning how we discover what we enjoy about gaming. Where does gaming start from you? Is it something you get from friends, family? Do you have a particular starting point in terms of game or console?
So my first, I was super young. Can't even remember the age, but my dad got me an N64, and so I played the original Smash Brothers, and he and I played through Majora's Mask together, and there are so many funny memories I have of like playing through Majora's Mask because I was like 7 or something, and I didn't really know how to control it. But we managed to make it through most of the game, and we got to the fish boss Georg. I think that's how you pronounce it. And we couldn't beat it. So one night my parents were having a dinner party with a bunch of their friends over. And, I was off in another room of the house because it was all adults. I didn't care. And my dad was talking to one of his friends, and he mentioned, me and Taylor are playing through this game, and we can't beat this boss. And the friend goes, oh, I could do that. So at this dinner party for like 40, 50-year-old people, my dad brings me and his friend into the game room, and his friend just beats the boss, and I'm like, holy crap. So it's so funny to me that just out of nowhere, this guy goes, yeah, I can do that. And so, I guess that started the whole, like, this is really interesting to me, and I want to explore more about it kind of thing.
So you feel like from then on, so it was like the formative N64 experiences, especially with your dad. From there on, like, did you angle to get like a 6th gen system for like a holiday, or like did you like save money or do anything like that?
Oh God. So my parents like to go outside and take hikes and go on vacations and stuff like that. And I promise this story will loop back around.
No. So I'm ready. Give me the content.
So we went to Norway, I think it was. It was either Norway or England, and I genuinely cannot remember which one. But it was me, my parents, and a family friend. And we were hiking through the countryside, and suddenly it started to rain really, really hard. This was middle of summer, so it was really, really heavy rain season. And I didn't have the best rain gear at the time. So the family friend lent me hers. And my mom sat me down and goes, all right, listen, if you can get through the rest of this, like, 3-hour hike without complaining, we'll get you a GameCube. And I was like, hell yeah, easy. And so I, made it through and made it back to the States, and I got a GameCube.
I mean, hey, take it, right?
Yeah.
I got my Xbox because my parents wanted to make my confirmation in the Catholic Church mean something, and let me tell you, that took me in a different direction than caring about the Catholic Church. But I could definitely relate to that. Now, do you have that? Like, do you still have the familial N64 and the GameCube and everything, or?
I do not. They were. I think I traded in the N64 to get the GameCube, and then I traded in the GameCube to get an Xbox 360.
Yeah, it's all reasonable.
My parents were very like one console at a time, and now I'm 27 and I have almost every console somewhere in my house. I think I'm still missing like the SNES, but that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I hear that. I refuse to collect games, but I'm very much there with you about hardware. So it sounds like from then on, maybe gaming's been a pretty constant thing for you through your years. Then, at what point do you learn about speedrunning?
So speedrunning is I accidentally stumbled upon it. So I was let me see. I was in Florida with my family again, like at Disney World, and it was we were relaxing after a day, and I had my laptop with me, so I was keeping myself entertained, just like looking around YouTube and stuff, and I came upon like a 2012 GDQ run, and it was Breakdown's 2013 Super Meat Boy run. And I saw that and I was like, this is really cool. Because I can't do this. And it just so happened that exact week was AGDQ 2014. And so I checked it out, and from there it was just all downhill.
only going faster.
Yeah. I caught... because like pieces of this just stick in my mind. It's like, here's exactly where my life branched out. I caught M1 Account's Cave Story run, where I think it was Azure just like slaps him in the back of the head super hard. I was watching this and going, this is fucking hilarious. Like, this is crazy.
It is really fun to catch those moments of just like great camaraderie on the couch. I think more than anything else, as a viewer seeing these events, that can really sell the social aspect of it, because you ask someone who attends a GDQ or other speedrunning event, like, what's it like, and they're like, oh, it's always it's really about all the stuff away from the marathon room, but I feel like a little bit of the spirit of the event can leak through when you have that really good bond with the couch. Now I know at this point. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, when I go to GDQ, I always try to pick like 5 runs that I like want to catch live, and I make sure to catch those just to keep the spirit of it alive for me.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Being a live audience for speedrun marathons is so powerful. It may be hard to communicate for folks who haven't done it, but even like I do runs at a local hobby store when it's not a pandemic, and even just that small audience really just gives you so much energy, and it's really cool. And of course, on the GDQ stage now, you've had the opportunity to both do runs and do volunteer stuff. How did you get into doing volunteer stuff? Am I thinking that right? You done tech stuff for them?
Yeah. So I am currently a producer for GDQ, which means I have a 4-hour block out of the day where I run the stream. And I started as a stage and stream tech. So part of the reason I started is because admission is free for volunteers. And so at AGDQ 2015, I said, I'm just graduated from college. I want to go to this thing. And so I stayed at my parents' house and just commuted back and forth to the event, and it was free. So I spent almost no money, like, the entire time I was there. And actually, that event was where I met one of my closest friends now, Enfro. He and I just happened to be on like the same tech shifts the entire time. And so I think if I hadn't had that experience of like, hey, this guy is really cool, let me just talk to him about stuff. Oh, like we have a lot in common. You know, we can just like bounce ideas off of each other. I think if I hadn't had that, that event would have been less entertaining to me. And that was also the event where the first Tetris exhibition happened. And so that was, of course, fascinating to watch live because, you know, it just, there's something about it, the video that just, they captured the energy in the room perfectly, or it's just people freaking out.
Yeah, it's pretty staggering display of skill, and to be there live. You know, I was just talking about the sensation of presenting to a live audience, but also being in the audience too. You know, it really does count for something.
Yeah, I didn't get on camera speaking until AGDQ 2016 when Shockwave did the Hat in Time beta. That was my first time commentating. I was on camera for AGDQ 2015. If you watch the Dark Souls 2 run, you could see me falling asleep in the background. Whoops.
Oh, no.
But, yeah, so 2016 was the first time I commented. And then 2017 was the first time I ran, which was Shockwave in my doing Borderlands 2.
And you've had the opportunity to do some other cool runs. I feel like you've done, I think, like Dying Light and also the pre-sequel?
Yep. The only runs I've done are co-op. I think I have the most runs of people who only have done co-op runs, which is a weird way of phrasing that. But
that's a real sports broadcast statistic, right? You'd be watching a baseball game, and then they would trot that one out.
At one time, I actually tried to track how many co-op runs people have done. I'm, I think, number 6 in terms of runs. PJ has like 11. So
yeah, no one's catching him.
Yeah. But so I've done Borderlands 2 twice. I did Any Percent, and then I did All Quests. I did the pre-sequel, and then I did Dying Light.
Cool. I would be curious to ask right now: Are there any games you feel like you really want to see, like of the ones that you run, that you would really love to try and get in? Now, of course, not saying that everyone has games they want to get in. I'm just curious because certainly it's cool that you've gotten Borderlands 2 and Dying Light, and I'm just wondering if you feel like you have another achievement to strive for.
Yeah, so there's actually like 3 games that I'm running that I really would like to get in. 2 seriously, and 1 is a joke. There's Origami, which is Dishonored-esque. It's very blink and stealth focused, and it's super, super fast paced. So you're just, teleporting all over the place. There's Epistory, which is a 2.5D typing RPG, where you have to maintain a combo the entire time, and you have to hit like insane words per minute at the end. It's really, really fun. And then the last one is Zumbinis, because I think Zumbinis is very funny.
What is? I don't think I've heard of that game. Can you just give a quick summary?
Oh man, it was this game that was famous. When I was in elementary school. It's this really young kid like puzzle game, but the puzzles increase in difficulty as you go through the game more and more. And like even now, I can't figure some of them out. I'm dumb. So it requires fast deduction, I guess I'll say it that way.
Yeah, no, that sounds right. But of course, I think the nostalgia value sounds really powerful. I have about 5 years on you, so maybe I might have missed the ship on that one, being a too cool middle schooler or high schooler. But I'll have to look it up now. Speaking of things that I've missed the boat on, there's a phenomenon in society that I have only come to recently in my old age, and that's Reddit. I've never really used Reddit much. I don't know why. everyone I feel like has judgments or things that they feel about Reddit at large. But the reason I've come to Reddit in my old age is because I love to look for places to learn about speedrun things, and so I was going to ask, how did it come to be? Because I don't know things about Reddit, right? So I don't even know the right questions to ask. But how did you come to be a moderator for our speedrun?
Yeah, so I found the subreddit, a while ago, and I was just very casually browsing it, and there had, in like 2015, I think, there was some drama where one of the moderators' accounts was hacked, and I know like the surface level of it, and I don't exactly know what happened, but apparently it wasn't great. So I noticed that there was only one guy moderating this entire subreddit. And so I sent him a message and said, "Hey, I'd love to help if you want some extra help." And he said yes. And that was pretty much it. I, just out of nowhere, I said, "Hey, I'll do this for you. I'll help work this alongside you." And it worked out. And then as time went on, we realized we needed another person. So we picked up Bacante, and yeah, it's just the three of us holding down the fort.
Okay, because that was one of the things I was kind of curious about, was that I have no idea how old our speedrun is. So I wasn't sure if it was something where you would have been around for whenever that started, but it sounds like in this case it was a situation where there was a need for moderation, and I guess you, perhaps being a experienced Reddit user from other places, were able to step in and help that first mod.
Surprisingly, no. I'd never used Reddit before looking at our speedrun. I'm subscribed to like 5 subs, and I look at 2 of them, and one of them is our speedrun.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
That said, I do read pretty much everything that gets posted on there, just to keep informed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean,
keep my finger on the pulse.
I feel like there are diverging opinions about what constitutes ideal our speedrun content, but I can affirmatively say that I find things that I would not have otherwise discovered, whether that be people posting new records, and so I get to learn about runners and runs, or people posting Discord bots, or occasionally people having very specific niche questions about speedrunning, and I'm able to respond and answer. And that's always kind of my feeling, is that like, if I'm going to post or respond, I want to have something that will have value for other people more so than just trying to get visibility for me. Like, I never use social media in that way. I was just curious, because I know some months back, there was some sort of exposed explicit moderation discussion about meme posts, for example. Like, they were some people were against, some people for them, and just broadly, without saying like I hate these posters, what would you say is I guess a direction for our speedrun that you would want to see? I mean, I guess ultimately the answer is community directed. I'm just curious if you have any things that you're like, oh, I love it when I see this kind of post, which isn't to say that you're going to moderate people who don't post like that.
Yeah. So one of the things I've really been focusing on is getting new people into the community. I've been trying to figure out how best to do that, because extremely nothing against people like getting into the community. I think it's very good, but a lot of their questions are really basic, like, how do I start? And
right. What game?
What game? That's the kind of question that it can have specific answers, but generally the answer is just pick a game you like and you just go. Like, there's only so far that we can hold your hand and we can tell you what to do. You have to take that step yourself. And so that's been something I've really been focusing on, is striking that like tonal balance between, saying, oh, here's all the resources we have, and then saying, okay, now you have to do it. Like, you have to take this step. We cannot, we can't do the run for you. Yeah,
no, I think that follows, because certainly with And this is true maybe of any sort of hobby. You know, at some point you have to be able to have said, "Hey, I put some time into this, and now I have a question." You know, and that's true of music. That's true of woodworking. That's true of a lot of things. There are things you can ask up front, but there are some things that you might not have the language to be like, "Wow, you know, I'd really had trouble with this skip," or something like that. You know, until you really put time into it.
Yeah, and so it's one of those problems where, you know, if we're too curt with people, they will be mad at us and leave the community, and that's not what we want. You know, we want to invite people in, show them around, and then from there, they have to take their steps. So, you know, it's totally fine if someone goes, "Okay, I've been running this game for like, you know, a week, a month. How do I get better? Like, what mental tricks do I need to do to get better?" And so that, you know, can open up a discussion about, is it better to do ILs versus full runs, no reset runs? What kind of practice is it better to do? You know, that's a good discussion.
Yeah, that's a very substantive discussion. Yeah,
right. But, you know, if it's, how do I run Live Split? Well, you download Live Split and hit run. You know, there's not much that can be said there.
Yeah, shout out to the Live Split. What a solid little utility. It's really, that's one of the things I always do that at the end of every year. I just try to, like, I don't know, give money to all the extremely cool free tools that I use to do streaming and
I should
stuff.
Start doing that. I think
there's a lot of cool stuff
I have
out
an
there.
Autosplitter for like every game, almost every game I run. Because Live Split is,
that's just another layer of labor. Yeah, no, definitely. All right, so we're going to start moving into talking about some of the specific runs here. But before we do that, I need some takes. Now, so I think you already said that the beta build of A Hat in Time was your first real speedrun, right?
Kind of. So I did technically run Meat Boy before it.
Okay.
And Meat Boy, God, I still have cramps in my hands from how I have to hold the controller because that game is so hard.
What kind of grip is it? Is it like a weird like claw grip or something, or?
You have to hold the trigger down the entire time.
Oh.
There is no point at which you should, like, I could just tape it down. That might be smarter, but you have to hold the right trigger down the entire time.
Damn. All right. Well, what I was going to ask is, I always like to get, especially for people who've done a lot of games, favorite and least favorite speedruns. And usually the favorite's easy because it ends up being one of the games that we're talking about, and the least favorite is harder. But first off, what's your favorite speedrun?
I mean, it has to be Borderlands 2.
Okay. Yeah.
There's so much about it. There's a gazillion categories, and people are always creating more. The RNG is hard, but not punishing. You know, there are points in the run where the RNG is reset worthy, but if you can make it beyond there, then you can finish a run. And there's, like, the two runners right now who are dominating co-op. You know, Shockwave and I have been pushed to 4th place, which is insane because we were the best co-op duo in the world for such a long time.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have a question about that.
Yeah, but the two runners who are leading it right now are using strats that we knew about in like 2015 and didn't think were viable. You know, so they're really just digging up this old stuff and making it, you know, real and fast, and that's really, really cool to see. You know, it's a new generation taking over.
Yeah, that's super, and that points to, I think, one of the things I notice is that speed games that really hold attention have a depth in that way, that you can constantly churn on the strats. Like, it can be exciting to pick up a game with a bunch of friends and route it down, but sometimes, you know, you reach the bottom of the barrel and that's it. You know, there's an intense activity for a month and maybe you move on. But, you know, when you have games with so many systems interacting, that, you know, it really keeps you coming back. But before we get too deep into Borderlands 2, what is your least favorite speedrun that you have completed a run of?
So it's not necessarily a speedrun that I've, like, so this count, for a while at GDQs, we would do something called the meme race, where a runner, Pear Strike, would pick a GameCube game, and we'd all get a copy of it, and we'd go take over the practice room for, I don't know, a couple hours, and it would just be like 40 people running like Dora the Explorer Journey to the Purple Planet, or, you know, Bionicle or something.
Yeah.
And my least favorite run out of that is Spider-Man. Hate that game. That game, I hated it so much, I snapped the disc after I was done, and I was like, I never want to play this game again. I'm just walking away.
Is it hard to snap a mini DVD? I've never tried.
It's harder than you would think, but it's not that hard.
Okay. All right.
If you have enough rage and fury behind it at the final boss that wasted 30 minutes of your time, then you can snap it in half.
Okay. Yeah, no, I believe that. I feel like I've seen, in my time watching Twitch, I've seen PS1 discs get snapped a few times, but I've never seen GameCube get snapped. So I believe it. All right, let's start talking about some of the particulars here. All right, now, so you mentioned earlier that A Hat in Time was maybe the first one that you really spent a fair time with, and of course that was in particular the beta build. You had sent me the I think in your your YouTube video says all hourglasses, and I think when I looked at the leaderboard it said all timepieces. Are those the same thing, or?
We had a huge debate about that. I'm like the only one in the community that calls it hourglasses. So in the beta build, there wasn't actually a name for them. Like, we could look into the code and figure out what the name was, and it was timepieces. But we started calling them hourglasses before people looked into the code. So I was like, I'm remaining constant. Remaining true. But yeah, hourglasses and timepieces are the same thing.
Now, would you say this is the category that you primarily were interested in, as opposed to a raw any percent?
Yeah. Any percent for the beta was... It was interesting in that early beta way. The devs hadn't tied frame rate to physics yet. So switching to like 12 FPS was a strategy that we regularly used. And the all hourglasses category, or all timepieces, whatever, was less of that. And it was also doing everything in the beta. And so that was really cool.
Yeah, I noticed when I watched the run, that the changing FPS was one of the things going on, and I'm always deeply entertained by that. Now, with this game, watching it, you had already mentioned earlier that it looks a lot like, and even references Sunshine, and just sort of that, I think that school of like Mario 3D platformer where Mario's diving forward. That was definitely the movement I feel like I saw a lot of, not being a big platformer player myself.
Yeah.
Now, with that movement, is that movement all intended, or is there anything being exploited there to really get the motion, like the dives and things like that?
So everything is pretty much intended. When you dive, there's a short period, and this is still in the full game. There's a short period when you dive, when you hit the ground. If you hit A, it's a roll boost, so you hop out of the dive and you go forward. And so a lot of the beta was figuring out how to exploit roll boosts in certain ways to get, more distance. But the one thing that I am very proud of is in the final level of the beta. It was called Beta Hero Challenge. And it was designed to be just a compilation of all this really hard platforming. And it was supposed to be, you get to the end and you're very proud of yourself and you go, I've beaten the beta. I have done the hardest challenge that they could throw at me. But we discovered a glitch with the hover badge where if you unequip it while you're hovering, you continue to hover.
And so that's what that was.
Dive. Yeah, you can dive out of that hover. So you're constantly raising upwards because that's how the hover badge works. And I figured out the use to just fly around the level, and it saved something like 30 seconds. We had found the flying glitch. We didn't think there was a use for it because you couldn't get out of it. I figured out how to get out of it. So I'm very proud of that final level.
Awesome. Yeah, that's one of the things I always like that they do ask is that, what are the things that you might have been involved with prowess? So that's you anticipated me there. Another thing I do want to ask about is that there is, it looks like there's some like out of bounds stuff where you get out through a window. Is that being engaged through like the hover badge stuff, or is that being done some other way?
No, so boy, it's it's been a while since.
Yeah, no. Well, I should mention that the PV video that you sent me is like 5 years old, so I'm actually really impressed how well you're speaking to all of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's because I still try to maintain connections with the hat community. I stepped down from being a mod a while ago because I don't run the game actively. But I have a very good memory for speedrunning things. So the getting out of bounds, so they had a ledge grab mechanic in the game, and there was a window in the game that you could just jump at and ledge grab, and it would take you out of bounds. And you like it was a little more precise than it seems like in the video, because you have to hit it from a certain angle or it doesn't work. But yeah, they left that in the game.
I love that. I love ledge grabbing to get out of bounds. It's always one of my favorite. It's like I feel classical 3D out of bounds to me, when you can just mantle straight out of bounds. It's very, very good. I just as a note about A Hat in Time, I had the opportunity, I think it was last year, to go to a Twitch Philly meetup, and at the meetup there was someone who said that they were a part of developing A Hat in Time. Do you know anything about this? That there are people involved in the making of Hat in Time in the area of Philadelphia?
I don't know, but that's interesting.
Yeah, well, it's just because I identified myself as a speedrunner, and then they got into talking about how rolling out patches and getting responses from the speedrunning community in response to patches, and it was interesting to me because I had never had the opportunity to talk to a developer before, and I was just curious because I think you had this on your speedrun page. Otherwise, I'll bleep it out. But we're both Metro Philadelphia area people, and so I was just curious if you knew of the local connection.
Yeah, I didn't. That's interesting. And actually, the patching system with them was pretty funny because so they actually ran in the beta a speedrunning event like specifically for, I hesitate to say us, but like the community in general.
Yeah.
And then as patches started to go out, we found stuff in the 1.0 version of the game, and we basically approached the devs and said, hey, we know you like us doing speedruns. If you fix this stuff, we're going to down patch. That's just how it's going to be.
That's how it be, yeah.
And they said, okay, we'll make it easier for you. There's a Steam branch for 1.0. So people can just go into Steam, right click, select properties, and go back to the 1.0 version of the game. They don't have to worry about depatching. We don't have to have anything complicated. It's that was one of the godsends of early Hat in Time full release speedrunning.
No, that sounds awesome. That's honestly, I don't know if developers are listening to Overboost, but do that on Steam. I know GOG is a little better about letting people down patch to earlier versions that are available on GOG, but yeah, do that on Steam.
If honestly, devs, if you want to support your speedrun community the best way possible, that is the lowest effort but the highest quality thing you can do is if they find something broken on a branch, keep that branch as a Steam, and then just have your main branch going out. It's less hassle for getting into the game. It's less hassle for playing the game because we don't have to write a down patcher. It's great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we've already talked about getting people into speedrunning in the context of our speedrun, but also it's definitely true for PC speedrunning, especially. That the communities will do down patchers in PC speedrunning, but it's always sort of a hassle, and you just have to hope that you have someone in the community who can make that tool effectively. I think the only time I really had to do that was Japanese Vice City, which is its own debacle. But
oh god,
yeah, that's a great discussion. But the point is, if you can avoid it, if you can just make it so that people can do it with the tools on the platform, that is excellent.
Mm-hmm. And even beyond that, there's now, I think, 5 different branches just for all of the different, versions that we've found that are good for speedruns. You know, and I'm actually looking at it right now. They have the name of the branch, and then after it that says ruin save data speedrun only, so that, you know, people don't see it and then change to it accidentally. But like, so great.
Yeah, no, surfacing versions like that, and you know, with the platform tools is pretty cool. Now, you said you're not active in it right now, that you stepped aside from moderation for it. But you said you still kind of keep in touch. Do you do runs from time to time? Do you have goals for returning?
It would be cool to return, especially because it's, you know, a very nostalgic game for me. It's, you know, where I started, but I don't really have any plans right now to go back to it. But who knows? I mean, you know, maybe in the future, because I have been present for, but not commentating every single Hat in Time run or race that's been at a GDQ.
Cool. No, that's neat. It's you know, I watching it myself and thinking more and more about, because you're not the first Overboost guest that I've been like, think about indie games, and to see, you know, your responses and how far back this goes, because, you know, I'm talking about indie games like it's blowing up right now, but, you know, they're going back, you know, 10, 15 years now. You know, you have all sorts of really important titles, and I think Hat in Time seems like one of those for 3D platformers.
Oh yeah, 100%. And then there's also the Hat in Time knockoffs, which I also ran, which is really weird to like have a knockoff of an indie game, but
I mean, success breeds knockoffs. That's a fact of life.
Yeah. And actually, both of those have been run in GDQs.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
097 Ace of Spades did Poi, which was an interesting one. And then Mildew did Freeze Me. God, that was a fascinating run. I heavily encourage people to check that one out, because there's so much about Freeze Me that's just makes it a great game.
Now, the title of that game is literally just like Freeze Me, like... Okay, just making sure that I understood that right, so people can look it up. I should note, of course, that there will be links below the, you know, in the podcast description or on YouTube, wherever you're listening, that'll have, you know, links to these runs that we're talking about, and also some other relevant links as things come up. But let's get into Borderlands 2, because I know that Borderlands 2 is definitely the thing where I was like, I wonder what I can talk to Amerlin about. Probably Borderlands 2, and I was right. And it turns out, watching Borderlands 2, I've watched Borderlands 2. I want to say years ago, I feel like there was a period of time where I did watch a fair bit, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but was Professor Broman a Borderlands 2 runner? Am I? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah,
I watched some of that.
So part of what actually turned me on to Borderlands 2 was his and T-Rex and Uberuse and iMisty's AGDQ 2014 run, because it was so cool to see this game that I had like just started playing, you know, be annihilated, and that that kind of helped get me into speedrunning. Then I started running Meat Boy and Hat in Time, and the way Borderlands, without reservation, has been a game that has pretty much defined the path of my life as it stands right now. Like, if I had... That's my fiance in the background, who I met through Borderlands 2.
Wow, the power of Borderlands.
Yeah, if I had not started playing that game, I would not be where I am right now. And it's not because the game changed anything, just because the people I met through it. So, Shockwave got me into the Hat in Time beta because we went to college together. So we started hanging out a lot. And then, while we were waiting for the full game to come out, they said, we need, you know, another game. Let's run Borderlands 2. You know, just off the cuff. And so we started, and our first run is still up on YouTube. And it is a 3-hour train wreck where both of us forget how to do the infinite ammo glitch multiple times, and you know, I don't recommend watching it, but it's something. And then from there, we kept driving the time down more and more until Lady Kestrel accidentally found a duplication glitch, and we were like, "Oh, cool! You know, now we don't have to like dual dupe for guns anymore." And then we found out that glitch actually breaks your character's stats. And from there, that's where everything escalated. And, it's how all of these times have been driven down so much.
I want to ask I'm very curious because certainly it sounds like Borderlands 2 is the prime thing here. Had you been a Borderlands fan before picking up Borderlands 2 and then segueing into speedrunning from there?
Yeah, so I played through Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2 before speedrunning. Beat the whole game. I didn't really know what I was doing in terms of build paths, so it's kind of funny to go back and look at my old characters and go, wow, why did I pick that? That's really dumb. But, yeah, I had played it casually, and that was part of the reason that Shock and I said, let's pick this up, because we both played it, we had both seen Broman's run, and said, that's really cool.
So, okay, so let's maybe, because you've already mentioned there's, like, a ton of wild tech in this game. I feel like I see that just from watching, and it's probably deeper than I can realize. Maybe let's talk about some of the intended things, because you just brought up builds and character builds.
Yeah.
For the 2-player, so the run I watched probably the most in depth was the Borderlands 2 2-player co-op run, the 125-58 with you and Shockwave, and which for 2 years was the run until like 2 months ago, as far as I could tell. And what's the build composition? Because I'm assuming it doesn't seem like you two are doing the same thing. You're both doing separate things. So what is the build composition there for the 2 players?
Yeah, so I play Gage the Necromancer, who and per the devs description, you can actually hear them talk about it in the 2014 GDQ run. Gage was intended to be like the character. I don't want to use their words because their words actually really suck. I wish they hadn't picked them.
Didn't they say it was like easy mode, or I think they said, oh man,
they said it was the girlfriend character, and I really
was about
hate
to say
that
girlfriend
description.
Mode, and that's awful, not good.
It's really bad. I don't like it. I wish they had picked a different word, different phrasing. Gage is meant to be for people who don't play first-person shooters all that often, because she has a pet that runs around and hits things just regardless of whatever you're doing. She has a lot of defensive capabilities. Like, she's one of the tankiest characters in the game. And she has a skill that we have used in the speedrun, where if you miss and hit a wall, you have a 50% chance to ricochet that bullet back at an enemy. So, if you're missing and shooting at walls and stuff, you still hit the enemy. And we really use that with the infinite ammo shotgun glitch, where I just shoot the ceiling and 50% of those bullets hit the enemy. And, it turns out if you're firing a couple thousand shots in a couple of seconds, 50% is a lot of damage.
Yeah, the sensation of watching Borderlands 2 speedruns is always fascinating because so much of it is, you have to kill the enemies, you have to shoot them, and you have these shotguns which are just truly hosing the entire screen fiercely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was it was thought for a while that so currently, all right, let me start at the beginning. So it was thought for a while that the game imposed an artificial fire rate cap, and so that clicking on a controller or a mouse was the fastest way to do that. That's true, but not quite in that way. The game does impose an artificial fire rate cap, but it's way higher than what humans can reach with just manual motion alone. And so we switched to using free scroll mice, where you click in a button, you scroll down, and it scrolls forever, and each one of those inputs is pulled as a shoot input. And so, we've largely accepted free scroll mice because it's a 1-to-1 input, and it also helps prevent RSI.
Yeah, yes, good.
One of our runners actually had to quit because of RSI he got from clicking too much, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. That sometimes sometimes coming up with input methods to sort of, I guess, I don't want to say exploit something, but to get around something, it also makes your life better. I think a few months ago I saw a runner who was playing House of the Dead on PC, and they discovered they could fire faster with 2 mice plugged in at the same time.
Oh, that was Ecdysis, right?
It was. It was Ecdysis, yes. That was delicious, but yeah, that just made me think of that. Yeah,
no, and there was a big debate around allowing free scroll mice. Thankfully, it was before I joined the community, so I didn't deal with any of that. But it led to the joke in Borderlands community with the G502 being called the cheater mouse. So there's actually an emote on FrakerFace called literally cheating, and it's just a picture of the G502.
Oh, I feel like I've seen that, and I did not get the joke. So
yeah, so it started from our community, and it's jumped into a bunch of other communities because they also figured out that free scroll makes stuff broken in their game.
No, that makes so much sense. Okay? So we've talked about some of the firing stuff here, how you get the firing so quickly. Did you mention what's up with the infinite ammo? So
there's a gun in the game. There's a bunch of classes of guns in the game. You know, there's Torg, there's Maliwan, there's Hyperion, and then there's Vladov. And Vladov's whole gimmick, because each brand has one, is about ammo consumption. So Vladov rocket launchers, when you shoot them, every third shot is free, and that's the way they describe it. What it actually does is applies a -1 ammo modifier to your character for that shot. So, you know, you got 5 shots in the clip, you go 5, 4, 3, and then it goes back to 4. So it, you know, subtracts 1 from the shot count.
Mm-hmm.
If you swap away and then swap back to that weapon, now you have 2 stacks of the -1. So now you gain 1 ammo every time you shoot. And then if you do it again, now you have 3 stacks, and so on and so forth. Which is how, in certain runs, very specifically the Co-op All Quests run, you can get negative ammo in your reserves because it's trying to add too much ammo back into your clip.
The ammo overflows.
Yeah. Yeah, and so for Gage, she has a skill that when she's at full ammo, she regenerates health. So my goal is to always have exactly the number of shots that I'm shooting. So if I have a 2-barrel shotgun, I want to have -2 on my character. 3 barrels, -3, etc.
Neat. That's very, very cool.
Yeah. We got super lucky with Borderlands in that we have a lot of like really tech-minded people in the community, and people who are really good at like parsing and interpreting code. And so that's actually how we discovered like how a lot of this stuff works. We found out that it works, and then we have a bunch of people get into the code and go, "Oh, this is what's actually happening." You know, we have currently for Borderlands 3, we have someone who ripped every single part combination in the game and put it in a big spreadsheet just so that we can see like what's possible.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those things where having all that technical information in front of you is very powerful, but you also have to know where to look. And when you're able to sort of combine the experience of playing it with the availability of all that data, that's when you get, you know, both the discoveries, but also you're able to optimize the discoveries.
Yeah.
How does Shockwave go so fast? I really want to know.
Oh my god. So,
and also, why don't my first thought is like, why aren't both players going fast? And I'm sure there's a good reason for this.
There is. So it has to do with the character that he's playing. He's playing Axton, the Commando, and Axton has a skill called Expertise, where as long as he's aiming down sights, he moves faster. Now he's off-host, which means he's joining my game. I'm the owner of the game. And the off-host connection in Borderlands 2 is bugged in a certain way, where if he drops his gun while he's aiming down sights, it doesn't know that he's dropped his gun. because the drop key actually is PC specific. You can't bind it on console. And so they just didn't, I assume, they either didn't test it or didn't fix it as much as they could have. But in PC, we are allowed to bind drops. So if he drops while he's aiming down sights, now the game still thinks he's aiming down sights, and then if he does it again, now he thinks he's aiming down 2 sights, and then 3 sights. So it just exponentially stacks this expertise modifier to where he's running about 10 times my speed. And that's I think it's 2.5 times faster than the fastest car in the game.
Yeah, it's really fast.
Really fast.
And is that considered to be the optimal speed to travel? Like, could you go too fast?
Well, so there's actually a speed cap.
Oh, okay. There's a speed cap. Okay.
We didn't know for a while, but there is a legitimate speed cap in the game. You can only go so fast within the parameters of the game. Now we have a cheat engine table available for the game, which is how we tested a lot of this, where you can change like the friction and the speed cap, and you can go way faster than normal. You can go so fast that the game can't keep up with you, and you blink straight through terrain.
Right, and failure to load probably, right?
Yeah.
That's excellent. That's really I really love how much this is like all these little different rules come together to give you all these opportunities to just push the math, to just misplace, a +1, a -1 here and there, and you really get a lot of fun stuff. Earlier you mentioned duping, and one of the things in particular I wanted to ask about was what's up with dual, because you said the term dual duping, which I think I saw dueling in the run, and it seemed like it was being done to dupe. What's up there?
Yeah, so that's a thing in Borderlands 2 in TPS. It's unfortunately not in 3, otherwise we would be using it there. But if you duel for a gun, and then the person who put up the gun drops it, now when you win the duel, you get a copy of that gun. You don't get that gun, because that gun's on the ground and not in anyone's inventory. So, let's say we're dueling for a pistol, and I drop the pistol on the ground, and you win. Now you have that pistol. But then I can pick up the pistol off the ground. Now we both have it. And the way it's currently used in the run is to dupe an echo log, which, and again, this is something that we didn't really figure out until we just started testing a bunch of things to make it faster. And we actually talked to Anthony Birch about this at one point. Dialogue has priority, and it turns out the echo log has the highest priority possible. So the game will always try to make you hear that line, even if you're hearing other lines. So you can just skip dialogue. And that's part of the reason that the pre-sequel is so fast, because the echo logs are infinite use. Whereas opposed to Borderlands 2, it's one-time use.
Right.
So there's a lot of audio spam in the pre-sequel.
I could see that. I mean, that's always such a powerful technique. I think that might be one of the things that, for people who are new to speedruns, maybe don't appreciate. But with any game with voice acting, finding techniques to use elements of the game to sort of cancel long voice lines is really powerful. So that's really, really vital. You mentioned that there is a more powerful duping technique, though, right, than dual duping?
Yeah, so that's what you can see Shockwave doing at the beginning of the 2-player run, and Shockwave and FunCannon doing at the beginning of the All Quest run, where if you bind drop to scroll down and switch weapon to scroll up, and you have 2 mice, you just scroll opposite ways on each, and because they're off-host, the game can't quite keep up with how many they're dropping, and so it drops multiple copies of it.
Yeah, it's like an explosion. It's really good visually.
Yeah, and then if they refill their hotbar with new guns, now it essentially overwrites that onto their character, and so they get all of the extra crit damage off of those guns. And it only works with a couple of stats. It works with essentially implicit stats that like aren't specified. So one of the fun ones you can do it with is melee damage. So you can get like 1,000,000% extra melee damage and just run around and hit things. But for speedruns, we use it for crit. And, you know, bosses have crit spots. There's only one boss in the game that doesn't, and we avoid killing him because he's hard. Specifically because he doesn't have a crit spot. So you just, you know, crit the bosses and they die because you have something like 3,000,000% extra crit, which, you know, on any weapon, that's going to be doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, that's going to be a little bit of damage. So you mentioned earlier that in Borderlands 2, RNG is something to be managed and dealt with. Because I know watching this run, this particularly the co-op any percent run, there was some discussion of, it sounded like maybe particular enemies. Like I think at one point you said like, I couldn't believe we got a queen in this run, or like talking about loot goons. Can you talk a little bit about the RNG that you encounter in the run? I mean, my assumption was that some of it had to do with getting certain drops, but perhaps there's other RNG that you're looking for.
Yeah, so part of the problem with Borderlands is that all of the guns are randomized at all times, pretty much. What we're looking for around at level 10 is one of those flat-off launchers that I was talking about, and a 2 or more barreled shotgun. And that's specifically for my character, so I can do a lot more damage. But the queen that I was talking about is... every enemy has a chance to spawn as what's called a badass, which is just a higher difficulty enemy, but it gives more experience. And a queen is one of those badass forms of an enemy, and she gives a ridiculous amount of XP for our level. So if we're able to kill her, cool, now our XP route is slightly better. Because we have to hit level 10 by a certain point, because of a lot of really weird factors all coalescing that have to do essentially with if we don't hit it at this correct time, the vendors will lock to a different level, and then we can't get launchers.
Okay, so it's like, so basically it's a sort of experience management is sort of the most important thing, because then that feeds into the ability to get the launchers you need.
Yep. And
so, okay, so speaking specifically again about co-op any percent, this run, this 125.58, this was the world record run in this category, 2-player co-op any percent, until 2 months ago. You already mentioned that some of it had to do with strats that weren't seen as viable in like 2015 now being put to the test. Did you want to say anything more about that?
So part of it is just they got better RNG than us, and they played better. And the other part of it is, you know, they're starting to implement new routes for some of the like auto-scroller-esque bosses in the game. And they're also starting to implement new out-of-bounds routes for some of these areas. And the one out-of-bounds that I'm the most amazed with is for a place called... And I'm actually blanking here. This is...
Uh-oh.
Oh, God. I ran this game for so long. Why don't I remember this? Wildlife Preservation. And in that area, a runner named Judgy found an out-of-bounds skip that saves something like 30 seconds, but we all looked at it and said, this is way too hard. We're not going to go for this because if you miss it, you're done. You know, your run is over. You're not coming back from this. And these two people, Unjust Action and Deceptix, were like, nah, we're going to go for that. And then did it. So now they have like a 118, which is crazy. It's so good. And there's a bunch of other people all competing for the...
Yeah, I noticed, because you said
it's really cool.
This run is now 4th place, and so that means, and I don't think there's any overlap. We're talking co-op runs here, right? So we're, it's not just a single few people. It's 3 entirely different pairs, I think, right?
Yeah, Unjust Action, Deceptix, AC and Dark Smoke, and Utsu and Takigi.
Yeah, really, really cool. You love to see it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about all quests. So this was a run 2 hours 33 minutes 14 seconds. Do you feel like the adding in all the other quests, like, is that, and obviously this is, a substantially longer category. You're adding approximately a bit over an hour to the run. Is it your preferred run, or do you still think any percent is your preferred run?
I definitely like all quests a lot better, just because there's less RNG that you actually have to deal with. There's more guaranteed guns from quests, and there's more chances to get better guns. And then eventually we are guaranteed a gun that can just end the game, which is the Evil Smasher. So I definitely prefer that run a lot more. It's just the problem is I have to get 2 other people to do it with me.
So 3 players is optimal for that run? Or is it required?
Yeah. So actually on speedrun.com we haven't implemented a player count tracker for that because nobody runs all quests.
I figured that was the reason, that it was just a matter of there not being enough all quest runs for co-op.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you can see earlier on the boards there's some with 2 players. But 2 players is fast, 3 players is faster, 4 players is too many people because then we'd have to use a different early game strat that would waste a little bit of time. Because enemy health increases exponentially the more players we add. And so we'd have to have a different starting gun that is slightly worse to be able to one-shot enemies in the early game.
How does the party makeup compare? So obviously you presented the reason why not 4 players because of this early game strat issue. With the 3 players, is it like the 2-player any percent and another class, or is it a different party makeup entirely?
We played around with it a bit, but it is just 2-player plus another Axton to go fast.
Oh, so there's 2 Axtons?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay, I had skimmed through it. I did not watch it quite as in depth because I was unfortunately running out of time for other reasons. So I will mea culpa on that one. But
don't worry about it.
But it was some of the stuff, like especially the sniper rifle, or I guess it looked like sniper rifle duping up front was pretty cool. Now with both these categories, or Borderlands 2 generally, because obviously we're just talking about two specific instances of runs. Do you have plans to maybe improve your time with the 2-player any percent, or to maybe more vigorously pursue all quests?
I unfortunately don't think all quests is going to happen much more for me in the future. Fun Cannon has largely retired from running, and Shockwave, he and I do runs for fun, but he's a lot more interested in Destiny now, and so. Side note, God, I can't believe we lost another Borderlands runner to Destiny because we lost Broman and T-Rex to Destiny, and now we lost Shockwave, and it's...
Well, that kind... I mean, okay, I have played Borderlands 2. One time in my life, I played that game casually to completion with Zero. That's the sword character, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I did do that. I have played this game. Destiny, I've never played. Are they similar games? It's first-person shooter of loot. Is that similar?
Yeah. They're kind of similar. Destiny is like MMO-esque. I wouldn't even call it an MMO because it's not really. But the shooting mechanics are somewhat similar, and the skill trees are also kind of similar. I understand why, but it's
yeah. No, I hear you. I definitely. Multiplayer games come and go, and that's sometimes you just have a bunch of friends doing the thing, and you're not interested in the thing. But hopefully we'll see what happens. But actually, I guess I wanted to ask. This wasn't one of the runs that you wanted to talk about, but you have mentioned. It sounds like you're still involved in development of speedrunning in Borderlands 3. But I noticed the times for that are pretty long, and I wasn't sure if that was because the game is huge or if it's issues where the game design is throwing up roadblocks to going fast.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of combination of both. The Borderlands main quest, the here is where you go through the game and everything else is side quests, has always been historically pretty locked down. Like, there's no real ways to break it. And so that's the case in Borderlands 2, Borderlands TPS, and now in Borderlands 3. It's just in Borderlands 3, that quest is very long. And there's a lot of places that you go and visit. And it's really unfortunate that there's not as much that we can do to break the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's gotten below 5 hours in game time, which is still very fast compared to, the 8 or 9 hours we thought it was going to be at the beginning. But God, does it take a long time, and I wish it didn't.
Yeah.
And there's something like 140 save quits in the game, and it's just a skip dialogue. And
right.
That adds up to like almost an hour of loading time. Yeah. That you're just sitting in a menu waiting.
Yep. That's how it be sometimes. That is definitely. Yep. Yeah. No. Well, hopefully things improve on that front. Obviously, Borderlands still sounds like a lot of fun to play, even with this frustrating roadblock at the moment.
And actually, so if people are interested in Borderlands 3, I'd recommend you check out the geared runs, because those are really fun. That's just, you start at end game, or you start at max level with all of the gear you've collected so far, and then you just beat the game. You don't have to do any side quests, you don't have to do anything. So you have like really powerful gear, and you just run through the game. And that's actually a lot of fun. So I'd encourage people to check out that run.
That might become a theme of Overboost. Because this came up too with, actually, I keep bringing them up in this interview, Ecdysis, where mods to make runs into workable speed games, obviously with Ecdysis and talking about Dead Rising, they're a good idea. Do it. Don't be afraid. If everyone agrees that this is the version of the game that we want to run, then God bless. So
yeah, definitely.
But let's start winding things down here a little bit. One of the things I like to do in this interview series is to have a little bit of connective tissue where I will get a question from the previous guest for the next guest, and then also get a question from you, the current guest, for the future guest. So my last guest was Pete Dorr, and Pete Dorr had a good question.
Dr. Hauser. Dr. Hauser. Yeah. Sorry, this is the encyclopedic knowledge. I remember a lot of runs people do. Dr. Hauser was very
Pete's
funny.
Done a lot of cool runs. I mean, he's done, he's brought Jaguar 32X and 3DO to GDQ, which is delicious. For the next guest, this is the question he had, which was, for a runner that, like you, that has multiple runs, which of those runs has your favorite in-game music?
Oh, easy. Epistory.
Epistory, okay.
I think Epistory has some of the best music, and it has my favorite ending song, which is Desert Sun by Larkin Poe. It's a really good emotional ending to the game, and so it's a really good song. It's indie pop-esque, and I really like it a lot. So I'll always listen to the ending soundtrack when I finish a run.
Awesome. No, I it's really cool, because obviously we don't have time to talk about every game, so to sort of highlight one of your other games that you did mention earlier, that is cool. Now that does mean, though, that I do need from you a question. It can be gaming, speedrunning. Examples of past questions have been like favorite soundtrack, or if you could do mix two consoles together to make a new console, or so any sort of fun thing like that. It can be as silly as you want it to, but for the next guest, and you don't know who the next guest is, but actually I do now. What is the question that you would give to that person?
I think I'd say what trick would you like to most discover in your current game?
Ooh, okay. Oh, that's
something that's almost there, or something that isn't there, but man, that would be really cool.
I had previously been doing this Overboost project as a bi-weekly thing, and so previously I did not know who my next guest would be, but since the pandemic is not ending, I am now doing it weekly, and so that means that I do know who this question is for, and I am excited to ask this question to that person.
Excellent.
So, again, winding things down, what are some future games that you're excited about? Like, what's coming up in the fall? You're like, yeah, I'm going to play this.
There's 2 games that are coming out on the PS5 that I cannot wait to play. I want to play Deathloop by Arcane. It looks really cool. It looks really Dishonored-esque, and I really like the whole time loop scenario that they have. And then I want to play Bugsnax, because good lord, did that theme song stick in my head.
That's a catchy song.
God, does that game look weird.
Yeah, no, I agree. And as they've been releasing more and more of the bug designs, like being able to look at the bug designs up close really owns.
Yeah.
Cinesnail, you're my hero. You're delicious.
I can't wait to see how weird it's going to be, because I played Octodad. Man, that was weird. But
yeah, that's
just,
really
they
good.
had six years to concentrate it. And then in terms of games that aren't coming out, actually, I was meaning to mention this to you at the beginning. I want to play more of Metal Wolf Chaos XD.
Yo, that game, I mean, I really, really love playing that game casually, and I briefly tried to get into speedrunning it, and I just had a bad time with some of the bosses, but I've been meaning to return to it. One of the things is that it just felt to me like a perfect game, especially being into mechs, that I could then submit to GDQ, but like right away, you had both Blue and LCC submitting it to AGDQ 2020, and so I was like, look, you got 2 good runners. Like Blue's technically great runner, and LCC is also good. I was like, I don't need to get into this. Like, they got this covered. Neither of them submitted it to SGDQ 2020, so I feel like kind of a dunce. Like, I might get back to that now. Yeah, but no, that game's good. I mean, folks, if you're realistic, like a lot of people, when that release came out, the XD release, a lot of people said that game was like, oh, well, this is just like an early 2000 shooter, which I was offended by, because I love that garbage. Give it to me.
God, the voice acting and the writing, it's very, very good.
Yeah, no, it's really, I do recommend it. If people want to find the content that you're putting out, where should they find you, and what should they follow?
On Twitch, twitch.tv/Amerlin. Twitter @Amerlin with 3 N's, because 2 N's is taken by a Serbian girl who I can't get in contact with to swap names.
Okay, I was going to ask. That was going to be like my last question, was why is it sometimes 3 N's?
I keep, every so often, I'll find a Serbian to English translator and then tweet something at her to say, like, hey, do you want to change names on Twitter? And she never responds, so...
That's fair.
Oh, well.
Sometimes it'd be like that. But yeah, I will, again, as I mentioned before, I will have links to both your Twitch and Twitter in the podcast description, so please click on those, throw follows. Amerlin, thank you so much for all your time and the backstory and history about everything.
Yeah, of course. Always glad to do this. And hey, when the pandemic ends, I'll look at creating that Philly marathon I was talking about.
Someday, somehow. But I do need one more thing from you, which is that in order to end the podcast, I'm going to use like a catchphrase, like, let's boost on out of here. And when I say that, I need you to give me your best like rocket engine booster noise to end the pod.
Oh, God.
Can you do that? You good?
I think I'm ready.
All right. Folks, thank you so much for listening. Let's boost on out of here.